Because podcast boom.
Welcome to the Fish Nerds. It's a celebration of fish, fishing, and eating fish that is always interesting, usually funny, and mostly true. I'm Dave Perry from Wicked Fisher, and here are the Fish Nerds.
I'm Clay Groves, and anything is fair game, and it's a good bet that someone's going to fall in love during this episode.
Yeah, I'm Amanda Dowdy, and I'm from Great Beer Adventure Podcast, which is at www.greatbeeradventure.com. And I gotta tell you, I am very lovable, but I'm married, Clay.
Oh, so am I. So we'll have a love that dare not share its name.
Yeah, or we can just fall in love with the beer.
I am. What are you drinking tonight?
So tonight, in honor of all the fishiness, I went out and I got a Ballast Point. They have so many beers that are named after fish.
They are. What are you drinking? What kinds?
I've got the grapefruit sculpin tonight.
Yeah. Sculpin are like little dragons. They're so cool.
Yeah, they have some really beautiful pictures of the fish on there. Not all of their beers are actually named after fish. They actually have like an even keel beer that has mango in it, which is super, super sweet. And if you're into that, that's wonderful. If you're not into that, then it's not as wonderful.
It's not. But Sculpin, the Sculpin beer you're drinking, I've had, and that's delicious. And the cool thing about Sculpin, do you know Sculpin is a fish? Are you familiar?
I'm not, other than the picture that's on the can.
Right. So they're great. You know, in freshwater, Sculpin don't have air bladders, and air bladders are what keeps the fish buoyant, keeps them up and down the water column. So in freshwater, Sculpin sit right on the very, very bottom, and they kind of scoot right across the bottom, and they're perfectly camouflaged, live in the rocks, and they're kind of like a predator that kind of lies in wait. So looking at that picture of your Sculpin IPA, that little fish is just waiting for someone to pounce on that beer and drink it. So you've got a good one. And I happen to love Ballast Points. I can't afford it most of the time. It's pricey. But
it is pricey, yeah.
Really good.
Yeah. We talked about doing this earlier in the morning, and there's actually a big snowstorm that came in today. I'm up in Maine, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to get out later, so the school was already canceled, but no snow had fallen. So I went to the beer store at 9 o'clock with my 2-year-old and my 5-year-old, because that's how I roll.
Because you're a good mom.
Right. And so I was not the only one buying alcohol, but I was the only one with kids buying alcohol and no cigarettes.
Right. Well, that's an important detail there.
Yes. But I just said, okay, I'm going to grab this one and go. And they rung me up and I was like, oh, okay. Well, this better be a great interview.
Well, the cool thing is like people who are smoking the cheap cigarettes with their kids are not drinking good beer.
Yes, because their taste buds are gone.
They've wrecked them with their crappy cigarettes. So
right.
They don't care about good beer.
No.
Well, I'm proud of you. Now, tonight, we had a huge storm in North Conway, where I live, which is just about an hour from you. And they did not cancel school today, which was a terrible mistake. So I went ice fishing this morning, and then this afternoon went to the supermarket to buy beer, and they did not have Ballast Point, so I had to buy Dogfish Head 90-minute IPA, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like a consolation prize. It seems like, an equal prize.
It's so good. And I've had one already, and I feel like they're stronger than most beers. And I might be imagining it, but it's 9%. So it's not that much stronger than most beers.
Okay, well, actually it is.
It is. What do
most beers
have?
are like in around the 5 or 6 range.
Oh.
You start feeling it after like 7 or 8, and then yours is 9. So
got it.
It makes perfect sense.
Okay.
Now, do you know why it's called a 90-minute?
I was hoping you would tell me.
So there's a 60-minute, a 90-minute, and I think there's a 120-minute. And what that is they add in the hops, and that's how long they let them sit in there before they pull them out.
I thought it was like have one every 90 minutes and you're good to drive.
That's that's a really bad idea. I was just thinking like maybe you could pace yourself that much, but adding the drive part in it, that's not a
that way
plan.
if you have one every 90 minutes, you're not drunk and you could go home still. If you any more than that, you've exceeded it. No?
No. I would just like to, I've never met your listeners right up front, but I would like to tell them all, please do not take Clay's advice
Don't listen to Clay.
for drinking and driving,
Yes.
because that is not a good plan.
Yeah, I will tell you, I don't drink and drive, and I don't drink when I'm fishing either. So
You don't?
no, I'm I'm
Really?
an ice fishing guide, and I'm really safety conscious, and I just don't drink on the ice. It's just not my thing.
I don't go on the ice.
Oh, you should.
Oh, but it makes the noises, and I feel like I'm gonna fall through,
Mhm.
and it scares the crap out of me. And everybody wants to be like on top of like snowmobiles, because
Yes.
up here, and and they're like, and I'm like, and
Ah.
trucks. Why do people want to put heavy things on top of ice?
Well, ice floats, and it holds heavy things up, so it's totally okay.
I don't think your logic is completely sound.
It's accurate, but you should, when your kids are a little older and mobile.
Well, they are mobile. Do you
Okay.
have kids, Clay? Because 2-year-olds and 5-year-olds are mobile.
I mean, mobile in a relatively safe way. Because look, the first 3 years of life, you're just trying to keep the kids from killing themselves.
That is true.
Like they don't know any better, and you're just constant in protective mode. But then they get to a point, like my kids are 7 and 10. Now they can do stuff, and they don't always die when they're doing it. Like they're sometimes fun. You still have to worry about them. They're still dumb, not because they're dumb, but because they're kids. They just do dumb stuff. But you can do cool things with them, like go ice fishing. When your kids are older, I mean, this is an invite. I want you and your family to come ice fishing with me. I will change your tune about it. It's warm, it's comfortable, it's safe, and totally fun.
Did you say it's warm?
Yes.
What?
I have shanties with heaters and everything you need to keep warm.
You put heat on top of ice?
Heat rises. If you put heat under the ice, is a problem. On top of the ice, you're fine. So
my anxiety levels are like through the roof.
It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So
we actually go to North Conway on a semi-regular basis.
You do? Well, when you do, let's get a beer with the families. Not for the kids, but for us, and then we can hang out and talk.
That sounds great.
It's an open invite for you, okay?
Perfect. That sounds wonderful.
And, this summer we'll go to Storyland together. It'll be great.
Yes, we do Storyland every year.
Perfect. We have season passes, so...
Well, yeah, that makes sense. You're right there.
Well, my wife teaches in Jackson, so we drive by it every day.
Yeah, I was a teacher once. That was a long time ago.
And now you're a beer person.
Yeah, there's a lot of teachers in the beer world. I'm just going to throw that out there.
No, I also used to be a teacher, so...
Yeah. So I guess there's a lot of people.
Welcome to the winter of my discontent.
Nice.
We're going to move forward here, Amanda. Thanks for coming on the show. Now, I've been listening to your show. I love your show. I met you, 2 summers ago at a podcasting event in Boston.
Yes, it was lovely.
And I've listened to your show on and off since then. And the last few months, I've been listening to it more and more because we have some friends in common who said, don't forget about Amanda's show. And...
Wait, who are these friends? I need to go give them money or beer at least.
Believe me, you're giving them money. But
all right.
Yeah, it's our advertising person.
Yes.
Jessica. Now, so the question I have for you, you ask everybody about their origin story. So I'm going to ask you, what is your origin story for your podcast? Why, Amanda, do you have a podcast about beer?
Okay.
So keep it short.
So if you've listened to the show, you know that no story of mine actually starts at where you would think the beginning was. Mm-hmm. So we got to roll back. And we're going to quickly go through the years, but we're going to start in 6th grade when everybody told me that I was so amazing
when you
with
first
kids.
Started drinking.
No, I did grow up in Waterford in the middle of nowhere, but my parents were very strict and I actually never went to a single party through high school. It wasn't until much later that I discovered and hated beer. Mm-hmm. But in 6th grade, everybody told me, you are amazing with kids. You should be a kindergarten teacher. And I was like, yeah, that's great. So my whole entire life up college, I was like, I'm going to be a kindergarten teacher.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
By the way, my wife is a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah, good for her. Yeah. I lasted one day at a preschool in Florida, and the kids were so unruly. I was like, I hate kids, and I would be such a bad mom after being a kindergarten teacher. And all my life, really, I wanted to be like a good wife and a good mom. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that that was not going to work out for my main goal in life.
Uh-huh.
And so I said no, and then I became an accountant, and I actually don't like cubicles. So then I was like, what can I do? Oh, I like kids, but I don't really like kids except my own. They're
Mm-hmm.
pretty awesome, but everybody else's kind of are,
Do you always
not
like
mine.
your own?
I would say like 90%, maybe even like 95% of the time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they're pretty awesome. I was actually really sick when I was pregnant with them,
God.
for a long time. Not like the whole like first trimester. No, that came and went, and I was still really sick.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm pretty sure what I was doing is just funneling all my awesomeness into them.
You're
So
vomiting your awesomeness into your kids. So.
yeah, it was just like I lost all of it. But I met my husband in 2004, and our very first date was actually to a TGI Fridays. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was a non-date because he had a roommate at the time. But he ordered a really tall Miller Lite, and I ordered a really tall Miller Lite, and it took me 2 hours to drink it, but we had the most amazing conversation.
In that
And
conversation, did it turn out that the Miller Lite was not the good beer choice?
neither of us knew it at the time.
You've
But
come to
during that
terms with it
first,
since then.
yes,
Yeah.
come to terms with it. But during that first summer, the way we really bonded was we learned all about food and all about beer, and um, had a goal of trying as many different kinds of beer as possible. But there's a problem with that. In if you try a beer from Ballast Point in March, you can't necessarily remember in October which specific beer from Ballast Point you had,
No,
because
there's
they've
too
got like
many.
17 sculpins.
Right.
You can be like, oh, we had the really spicy one. That one you'll probably be fine. But oh, I had one that had some fruit in it. You're not going
Right.
to know which one that
Yeah,
is.
was it grapefruit
So
or kiwi? I don't know.
exactly. So I was sitting at a bar, and somebody geniusly, this is not the first time in my life that it's happened, but told me that I should do something, and I was like, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. But this time they were actually right, and they told me I should start blogging, and I did. And then I became disillusioned with beer and everything. That was real life when I was pregnant because of being so sick. Uh, and so when the youngest one was a year and a half old, I was like, Mama needs to get out. So I started going to a group that's called the Maine Beer Mavens. And I knew that I wanted to do
Wait, say that group name again?
Maine Beer
I
Mavens.
love it.
Yeah, we've kind of gone a little defunct in the past year or so.
Mm-hmm.
People are getting pretty busy doing a bunch of different projects. And so we haven't met as many times as we would like to, but we're still a Facebook group, and every once in a while somebody will be like, hey, we're getting together, and everybody will show up. But during that time, I knew I was actually going to be leaving teaching. And even though it was my goal all along to be a really good mom, I found out that I'm a really bad stay-at-home mom.
I'm a much better beer drinker than Mom.
Yeah,
Yeah.
as it turns out. So I knew that I wanted to do something that got me outside of the house. And everybody tells you that the podcasts that are the most successful are the ones about things that you're passionate about. And so I went back to beer, and, my husband and I going on these adventures together and writing this blog together. And now we have this really great dynamic to our relationship. I love talking to people. I'm one of those weird introvert extroverts.
Yep.
So I will love going out and being part of the scene. And then when it's over, I need to like go into my den and hide. But I need to be out every once in a while. So this allows me to do that. And he actually is pretty much just an introvert. And he likes being at home, so I go out, I talk to people, I learn new things, and I get beer and I bring it home, and then we can have the adventure at home of trying the beer and talking about it together.
Well, that's perfect. And your podcast is everywhere podcasts are found, or you can go to your website, thegreatbeeradventure.com, right?
Not the Great Beer Adventure.
Screw the, just greatbeeradventure.com.
It's not the only one. There's so many of them, but this is definitely
It should be the only one. Yeah.
Right, but I mean, everybody's on their own beer adventure, even
Yep.
if they haven't found that they love beer yet. They'll get there.
They'll
They just
they'll
haven't met the right beer yet.
they'll catch up. And I've been listening to your show, and I tell you what I like about it.
Yes,
And I
please.
and I happen to like your voice, but
Oh, thank you.
what you do better than me is you allow people to talk, and and so like with the way you like most recent episode, for example, I think you were in New Jersey or something or New York, I forgot, but
New York.
New York, and you ask the questions, and then you kind of take your voice out of it and let the brewers do all the talking and take us through that beer adventure, which I really like. And the editing is good, and it's a good quality show. And so everyone who's listening to Fish Nerds should check out that show as your second favorite podcast. And if it becomes your favorite podcast, we forgive you also, as long as you keep downloading our show. So,
Yeah, it's not one or the other.
no, you
It can
can.
be both.
I mean, do you do only one podcast when you're listening to shows, Amanda, or do you listen to a bunch of shows?
Oh, no, I have a bunch of shows.
Yeah, I cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, I find that if I am exercising, which happens in spurts, I go through a lot
Mhm.
faster.
Yep, me too.
But if I'm not, then it's really cold, and I could go to the we have a great community center here that has a pool and a track inside.
Mhm.
But that means I have to get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, get in the van, because even though it's only a mile, it's still dark and cold. And I got to get over there, and the van's cold, and my bed is warm. So I do a lot better with exercising in the spring, summer, and fall.
I understand. Well, cool. Well, hey, I'm glad to have you on the show, but we're not here to talk about any of that stuff.
No,
We're here to talk
here
about
fish.
love, actually. This is our
Love.
this is our annual Valentines Fish Nerds Love Special. Cue the sexy music. Pretend you heard music.
Okay, I'll do that.
All right, so we're going to talk about making love and how fish love each other and how much we love fish. Although I'm not convinced that love is the right word when talking about fish.
Yeah.
A lot of people, there are people who believe that fish share the same emotions as humans. We're not going to get into that debate tonight.
Okay.
But for the course of this show, we will anthropomorphize fish, and we'll use the word love whenever we need to, because it's Valentine's Day, and fish are cute. So
Fish are friends.
fish are our friends, yes. But before we do that, kind of a quick preview for next week's show. We're starting a brand new segment called the Effin Book Club. Hashtag Effin Book Club. And we're going to be talking about saltfish. And to bring it into the sexy world that we're talking about tonight, saltfish in a lot of cultures is a dirty name for girl parts. Amanda, did you know that?
I didn't. I saw that on your notes, and I was like, what am I getting myself into?
I know. I read that in the book Cod, A Biography of Fish That Changed the World by Mark Kurlansky, which is the book we're talking about next week. But then I Googled it, and there are songs written about it. I'm going to play a piece right now. Pretend you heard something. But Jeff Donaldson, librarian from the Mid-Coast Public Library out in Kansas City, is going to lead us through this discussion next week about cod. And if you want to be part of that, you want to call the show 607-378-FISH, 607-378-FISH, and leave us a voicemail, and we will use your opinions on that book on the show. But in the meantime, you have to read it. It's Cod, A Biography of the Fish That Changed the World by Mark Kurlansky, and I've also reached out to his agent to try to get him on the show, and we'll see what happens. Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, if you were a fish though, you'd be able to have gills, and it'd be fine, right?
It would be easy. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. So anyway, segment 1, let's talk about fish love.
Bow chicka wow.
Oh yeah. So, you're a Disney fan, right?
Yeah, big time Disney fan.
All right, you're gonna love this. So, let's talk about Finding Nemo, and we've on the Fish Nerds show we've talked about this before, but you may not know this. So in Finding Nemo, Nemo's mom gets killed by like a barracuda or something, right?
Yeah, it's a sad thing. You gotta make sure the kids aren't quite paying attention during that part, or there's nightmares about big fish.
I probably should back up and say if you have children, please don't let them listen to this podcast. Uh,
We're
so
about to ruin all of it
we're
for
gonna
you.
ruin your day. So let's talk a little bit about the biology and about what happens with clownfish. They're really cool fish, and a lot of fish actually are just like clownfish. So in the movie Finding Nemo, Nemo's mom dies, and Nemo's dad takes on the role as single parent and raises Nemo and protects him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is a nice story. Obviously, it's funny. We're like, oh, they got the science all wrong, but we're talking about talking fish. We probably doesn't matter if the science is right or wrong.
Right, but they got the water that looked really real, so you got to give them a little bit.
Some really good animation. They got the science of animation right. Uh, but so what would really happen is the nice thing about clownfish, the cool thing about clownfish is they are what's called sex-changing fish. They can change their sexual identity as they age. So what would happen is Nemo's mom would die, and then Nemo's dad would be left there going, "Oh no, I'm a dad. I can't make babies." So his body would actually change into a female clownfish, and likely he would mate with Nemo later on, and then they'd have babies.
Wait.
Yeah.
So that was all fine until you got to. Okay, so now I actually have heard this before.
Yeah, it's true.
Not the last part. We're gonna take this piece by piece just for a second.
Take it apart here.
Okay, so the whole clownfish thing, changing genders.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard this. I get that. I know that some different species do that. Actually, hop plants, if you stress out a hop plant, it will go from being a female to being both.
What's a hot plant?
Hop plant.
Hop. Oh, yeah, talking about beer. I got you. Okay.
Yeah, beer.
Okay.
So,
and now, by the way, the male hop plants are the ones that produce the hops that we have in beer, right?
No.
No?
No.
Am I wrong?
You were wrong.
Damn it. I hate that.
I know. If it wasn't for female hop plants, we wouldn't have beer because the female hop plants don't have these little seeds in them, and the seeds actually gunk up the works when you're brewing.
Okay.
They'll all be female, and then if you stress one out, it'll become both.
Well, how does one stress out a hop plant?
I'm guessing that it's like, water and sunlight and
It's not like with my kids, I stress them out by going, "Is your homework done yet? No, I can't do the math. Damn it, just work harder." Like that stresses them out. And so with the hot plant, can you say, "Are you done growing yet? Oh, come on, get in the game, kid."
Yeah, you can try that and see how it works. I bet I've actually heard that plants, if you yell at them, they don't do so well. So that might work.
That's why my plants all die.
Yeah.
That's my hobby, yelling at plants.
So I'm used to this whole idea of things in nature changing to be what they are.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with that piece of it.
Right.
Yes, it is a story. I've also heard that in Finding Dory, they talk about the big whale. What's the whale?
Oh, the whale shark or the
the whale shark.
Oh,
it's wrong, right? They said something wrong.
We did a whole episode called "Finding Dory Disappointing," and
Oh.
we actually had Rhett Talbot from the Angler's Pint and Karen Talbot on the show talking about it on that one because they got it so wrong, and it was funny, but this whole notion of like a whale shark talking whale and it made me nuts. Yeah.
I mean, I talk 2-year-old, and I'm not a 2-year-old, so.
That's true. That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
She could that could be your second language.
Do you talk to your 2-year-old like a whale? Like, hey, what's your kid's name?
I have 2 little girls. I've got a Charlie and a Maddie.
I love Charlie. Hello, Charlie. Leave it, Charlie?
I do. I have a little girl, 2-year-old Charlie.
Oh, it's so bizarre. When we had our second kid, my wife and I had decided if it was a boy, his name would be Charlie Danger Groves.
Nice.
Yeah. And if it was a girl, I wanted to keep it the same.
Yeah.
But she didn't go for it. It ended up being Samantha Grace. Not nearly as cool.
That would have been cool.
Yeah.
We with the first baby before she became before we knew if she was a girl or a boy. We called her Bean.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It was just something about a lima bean, so
It's
we
what
just called her.
babies look like when they're
Right,
babies. Yeah.
exactly. And so she was Bean, and then she became Maddie as soon as we found out she was a girl.
Mm-hmm.
But with Charlie, as soon as we knew we were pregnant, she was Charlie because she was either going to be Charlotte or Charles, um, depending on if she was a boy or a girl. So she's always been Charlie.
Charlie's a good name for a girl. That's
Yeah.
totally good. So I forgot what we were talking
Anyways,
about. Yeah.
yes, I do talk whale basically to Charlie because she'll like melt into a puddle. And
Uh-huh.
I'm one of the, I told you earlier, I'm not a great stay at home mom. I will just be like, I will copy the melting into a puddle and I will just bring it back to her because if I'm going to deal with that crap, she's going to deal with it back.
Damn it. Good. Well, good on you.
Thanks.
So
I'm good with the whole male to female thing, but I've never really thought through what that actually means.
Mm-hmm.
And that is horrible that they're actually like recreating with their own. It doesn't do
Well,
are their DNA not as advanced enough that like
no,
it'll kill
see,
the breed?
no, see now in the movie scenario, he would have mated with his own son, or she would have mated with her son. In reality, there's a lot more clownfish around, right?
Oh, because he was the only one there.
They would live in a group with a breeding pair of males and a female, right? If the female dies, the largest male becomes female, and all the other males mate with that one. And so in theory, I guess even in real life, Nemo would still mate with his dad, but a lot of other guys would also.
That does not make it better.
No, now that I say it out loud, in my head, it was perfect.
Yes, yeah. That's always a problem though. But my question goes back to like, if we take this to the person level, which is gonna make me want to shoot myself in the foot, but if we do, like the DNA all mixing together, if you're having like the same, like all the family,
yeah,
oh god,
well, let's talk about
it degrades.
Yeah,
is that
right.
not happening?
It totally happens, but we're not talking about one male and one female mating together. We're talking about a female dumping thousands and thousands of eggs and lots of males dumping their sperm on top of them.
So can you just kind of like tell which ones are like from her own kid? You're like, oh, that one has a special fin, like the lucky fin, like Nemo.
See, there it was. Oh, it's all perfect now. Yeah.
I'm never going to be able to watch that show the same again.
Hey, Nemo's a little inbred, Charlie. Sorry. That's why Nemo don't swim so good, because he's inbred.
Yes.
This is why Nemo drinks shitty beer and and smokes cigarettes with his kids. That's it. So
I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to end this. My life has just been ruined.
Show's over, folks. Thank you. Well, let's move on from Nemo and talk about sneaker males.
Okay.
This is very common in the fish world. And when you were a kid, did you go fishing at all?
I actually did. Yeah, my dad would take us, but it was always so mosquito-y no matter where we went.
Mm-hmm. And did you go fishing for like little sunfish and things?
Mainly trout.
Oh, really? Oh, you had a better dad than me.
He'd make us throw back everything that wasn't a trout.
Really? It's funny because the trout are the worst to eat and everything else is delicious.
Really?
Yeah.
My dad led me wrong.
These old school Mainers, they just love eating trout, and they're so wrong. Because the bluegills that you're catching while you're eating trout are much tastier and more fun to catch.
Yeah, I never really liked eating fish growing up.
Yeah, well, it's because you had to kill them.
Well, yeah. We also had a cow too that we ended up eating, and that was tough. But
my daughters and I
still tasted good.
Right, my daughters and I we raised our own turkeys this year, and so they're dealing with that right now. So they're on the fence. I'm like, do you want to get more turkeys? Like, well, but you kill them. Like, yeah. I'm like, oh, maybe I don't want turkeys this year. So let's.
Yeah, we only got one cow.
We're going to talk about sneaker males. Do you remember the TV show Bosom Buddies?
So I don't know how old you think I am.
I don't know how old you are, but have you heard of the show Bosom Buddies?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so it was Tom Hanks back in the 80s before he was famous. Was in a TV show.
Before I was old enough to realize who Tom Hanks was.
That's right. Before he was Woody. It was a TV show about, basically it was these two guys in New York who couldn't afford a hotel, hotel apartment, and there was an all-women apartment building they could move into, but they had to be females. So they dressed up as ladies and moved in the hotel, and they kept trying to date the ladies in there. Now that
I feel
story,
like I remembered it. It was a movie, not a show, though,
no,
right?
it was a TV show. It was a
Oh,
yeah, it was a sitcom.
huh.
Totally good, still funny, kind of. Very very sexist in every way, but it's back in the 80s. Um, but
Sexism was fine back then. We were all cool with that.
yeah, I'm okay with it sometimes if it's funny. Um, but there, but so because I'm older, but I'm not older where I on the level of some people, but I'm older. Trying very hard not to get political. Um, but so the bosom buddies concept actually came from fish. And bluegills are the kind of original sneaker males. So the bluegills, the blue eight bluegills mate is they create these big like saucer shaped nests, and a big bull of a bluegill kind of hangs out on those nests and guards them, and invites his harem of females in to mate with, and they drop their eggs and he sperms all over them, and they swim off and he guards the nest. But meanwhile, there's all these other bluegills around who want to also mate, but they're not as big and tough as that one bluegill. So they actually change their physical appearance. They look like females. And those big bulls invite those guys in. And those guys come in, and they hang out, and they look cool, and they act all like, hey, man, I love your fins. You sure got a purty bluegill, and then he's like, yeah, I'm so tough. And these move in. And then meanwhile, they're now in, and all these beautiful female bluegills are hanging out. And they're dropping their eggs. And these sneaker males are now in. And they just drop their sperm on those eggs and take off. So they sneak in, drop the sperm, and run away. And they disguise themselves as female bluegills to get in. I mean, that's cool.
I don't know if cool is the right word.
Yeah.
I gotta first start by saying that the whole reproduction system that these fish have going on is really gross.
Oh,
It's just like dropping eggs and sperm everywhere is just like really.
have you? By the way, have you ever? Your kids are little.
Yes.
You haven't had to explain sex to them yet. When you explain sex to anyone, I don't care what species is, it's gross. Like the explanation of sex is always gross.
I feel like at least it's a little bit more contained
it's
in the human species.
it's
The
internal.
fish
That's
are
true.
just like fish are all like let's put it everywhere. Let's just make our sperm all over all the things.
They're like money
feel
shot,
like-
money shot, money shot, money shot.
Exactly.
Yeah,
I feel like that starts getting into the porn realm.
it
You don't
is.
ever actually have to like discuss porn with kids.
You don't.
Like, yeah, you got to explain it. You got to get there, but it's all about like when you love someone,
Mhm.
it's not like money shot all over the place.
Right. So it's like when mommy and daddy love each other very much, mom dumps 10,000 eggs into a pile, and then 10 guys sperm all over them.
Yeah, that is disgusting. That is like the worst porn ever.
We're the best, depending
you're
on your
into
point of
that.
view. Yeah, I'm supportive of all lifestyles. So
Well, I mean,
if that's your
yes,
thing,
but I don't want to hear about it. I don't necessarily
never
want to
tell
hear
me about it. That's horrible.
that is way. Listen, I don't even like boogers. Like I don't want to talk about sperm all over all the things. That is nasty.
Ah, see, I knew this show was gonna get sexy. I just knew it was gonna. We were in danger. It's this beer. It's the beer. Yeah. It's so, but that's totally real things. But not all all fish do it that way.
Yeah, well, I do love how one thing that I really love is creativity and art and where people get inspiration from.
Mm-hmm.
So as much as I'm not into even there being sexism back in the 80s,
Mm-hmm.
I love how people can look at the idea of, these fish and completely change it and make it into this show. I think that's I don't know. I find that really really neat, and I love learning about where people get their inspirations for all these different things.
It would be really fun to talk to some of the creators of like Finding Dory and find out how they came up with it. Now I gotta tell you, this is true. Years ago, my friend Ray and I had a fish in his bedroom named Basil, and
It came out almost like fetish, but I think you said fish.
yeah, I did say fish.
That changes the whole entire.
My friend Ray and I had a fish fetish, but he had a fish named Basil, and now Ray's bedroom was in a shed in his backyard. He didn't. I'm not making this up. And
But no, the funny part is like this is not the first person I've heard about having their bedroom in a shed in the backyard.
Well, him and his brother both had it, and maybe you knew his brother. But and when he went to school in the morning, he would just unplug the heat. And in the afternoon, he would turn the heat back on. And now Basil lived in a 10-gallon aquarium, and Ray every afternoon would just throw quarters in there. There was no filtration or aeration in there, and all his pocket change went into this tank. And it would let it evaporate down to about 3 inches of water, get the garden hose out, and fill it back up again. Basil lived for like 3 years. And because there was no heat in there, occasionally the tank would freeze solid, and he just thaw it back out again, and Basil would be fine. So Basil got the name of Basil the Wonderfish.
Yeah,
and
because money is dirty.
It is, and freezing is bad for you. So
right, but wait, maybe I have a misconception. I live in Maine where it freezes really cold. I always thought like fish and frogs went into the mud and they just kind of like hung out in the frozen state.
So frogs do that, fish do not.
Okay.
Well, some fish do, but most fish do not. And it's really bad for most. The reason that we have life on Earth is because when water freezes, it floats. And it doesn't freeze to the bottom. If all your lakes froze to the bottom, we'd have no life on the planet. We'd all be dead. It's an important detail. Now, so Basil the Wonderfish is a great fish. So before Finding Nemo existed as a movie, I wrote a children's book. My wife and I worked on it together when we first met, called Basil the Wonderfish, about a fish with a very short memory, very much like Dory. And
short-term memory loss.
Yes, and a lot of the jokes in the movie were very familiar to me, but we never published it or did anything with it. But it was like, I'm like, someone had my brain. Like, they didn't steal my idea. They just happened to come up with the idea independently and do something with it. And I'm like, God, if I just did something useful. You know?
Yeah, there's actually a book and a theory around this that,
really?
what is it called? It's like the magic. Oh, I can't remember. But the whole idea is that there are these ideas and thoughts and inspiration floating around us, and they come into you. And if they think that you're a vessel that can handle it, they'll come to you and they'll be there and they'll be part of your life. And if you don't do anything with it, these ideas, they leave you and they go to find somebody else that'll let them be.
Yeah, I mean, but I wrote a book, but never published it. And then the stupid movie came out, and I was
right, but you never published it, so you didn't really move it past. I've got a book too that I wrote. It's actually called Sir Rexford and Capitan Kitty Pants. It's amazing.
Sounds perfect.
It is. It's so good. But I don't know how to get it published. I don't know what to do with it. I just have it. So my hope is that seeing it's based off my pets, but although yours was somebody else's pet, dang it, it's going to escape me and somebody else is going to write it.
If they're going to write it, it'll be a different name, but it'll be your story.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, I didn't write about a clownfish having sex with his dad or anything like that. I wasn't going crazy like the real movie. I was just
right, but it's that same idea. It's like, so they had short-term memory loss, and I can only ever think about it as memory loss because sand is squishy.
Right.
But short-term memory loss, and that's not like a common thing. So it's this just makes me really feel like, it's this thing that comes. It's this magic, the magic of the universe, and it feels like, how you parking lot some ideas sometimes because they're just not quite right for you.
Yep.
What's the point? They're just going to go find somebody else, and then you're going to be like, I had that idea once, and you've lost it.
Isn't that part of why we make a podcast? Because now we have ideas, and we can put them out in the world and before we lose them. Like, there it is. Boom. It's faster than writing, and it just gets out there. So
see, I'm gonna put this idea out there because I just want it to happen.
Okay.
and so if somebody steals it, that's awesome as long as they steal it and they put it in Maine
Okay.
because I need it. But I think that there needs to be some kind of, so you know how they have like laundromats and tanning places?
Yes.
Like that's a stupid mix. Like I'm not like I want to go like wash my clothes and burn my skin at the same time. Those
Well,
things are right. I mean, those are stupid. So,
okay.
and then there's like
Sounds great.
um, but my idea is that there's like a bar with like they have to figure out how to not have the smelly, stinky chemicals of it. But I want pedicures and manicures. So you can like as a girl, like I like being a girl. I like going and getting my pedicure done. But I don't want your crappy beer or your cheap wine. I will pay you to give me a really good craft beer. I want craft beer and my nails did. Boom.
See, I'm old. I say microbrew. That's
Yeah, you are.
yeah.
You are.
That's how you tell. Um, but it's funny. That's a really good point. And I always thought like every department store should have a bar in it.
Mm,
Because how many times I've been shopping with my family,
I like that.
and this is gonna be sexist, but it is what it is. And my wife Kristen wants to go shopping and try stuff on, and I don't care. And
See, for me, it's the opposite.
yeah,
Like I go in, I'm like, I will try this, and on. I try them on, but it's like boom, boom, boom. My husband's like, I'm gonna look at 17 pairs of pants. I'm gonna debate them before I try them on. Then I'm
oh,
gonna put them on a couple times, and
oh,
then I'm gonna take them off. I'm gonna put a different pair on, and then put the other ones back on. And I'm gonna walk out with no pants, and then we have to go to a different store.
not a chance. I don't even try stuff on. I just buy them. I know my size. And it's funny when I'm shopping for my wife. Like my wife a few years ago said, I need a black dress. So I walked into the dress barn and I stood in the door and
The one at Settlers Green.
yeah, and I said I need, you know it, and I said I need a black dress in size 8. And a woman brought one to me and I gave her money and I left. It took me 5 minutes. Boom. And I got home. She goes, "Wow, this is great." I'm like, "Yeah, I worked really hard on that." When I bought her engagement ring, I walked into a jeweler and said, "I want a wedding ring that looks original." And they went, "Okay, here you go." I'm like, "Okay, great, thanks, bye. Here's money." Left.
Yeah, I do that in Home Depot too.
Yep.
Like my husband will like want to just look at every single like we go to Home Depot a lot. We're
Yeah.
actually undergoing a major renovation at my house right now. And I have been without a kitchen for 4 weeks and I will be without a kitchen for another 2.5 weeks. Um so it's intense, but we go to Home Depot quite a bit, and my husband will like be all about like trying to hunt down what he wants, and I'm just like, no. I walk up and they're like, "Can I help you?" I say, "Yes. Where is this?" And they take me there, and then we leave. I don't have to debate it. Just tell me where it is. I'll go get it.
Perfect and easy, and we're way off target here. So we're gonna bring it back in. I got one more fish I want to tell you about.
Okay.
I want to talk about the anglerfish. Are you familiar with this fish?
Is that the fish that's in Finding Nemo in the Way Deep?
Yes, and they dangle this light in front of them.
Yeah. See,
Yes.
I everything I in my current knowledge all goes back to Finding
Right.
Nemo.
Well, so the one you saw in Finding Nemo is a female. That's
Oh,
a mama
how do you know the
fish.
difference?
I'll tell you because you'll never see a male. And for
Really?
years, scientists have been looking for a male anglerfish, and they weren't able to find them. And it turns out that these anglerfish, there has to be a male because they wouldn't be able to reproduce sexually without a male counterpart. Now,
Unless they were asexual.
but that's not sexual reproduction, right? So, well, again, that's a changing sex. So some fish can like store the sperm, change sex, and become females and have sex with
Right.
themselves, and make babies. But still, you're not having that genetic mixing. But they knew they were having genetic mixing happening, so they had to have sex
Okay.
somewhere. So they eventually do some. These are deep water fish, hard to research. But after further study, they found out that anglerfish have very interesting sexual habits. The male anglerfish are super tiny. And when they find a female, they bite onto her and they fuse into her body. They become part of her. And become their only job now is like a parasite that produces sperm. And they become like a gonad of the female anglerfish. And one female anglerfish can have like multiple males fused to her, just producing sperm and living off of her like a parasite.
I feel like there
So
are people that are like that.
I've dated a woman like that once who thought I was supposed to be her anglerfish male, and would never let me get away. Yeah.
That is crazy.
Yeah, I know. Like 3 restraining orders later, we're finally separated. I made
So,
that up. That's not a thing.
so wait a minute. So, they like you said they become like a what did you call them? A
A
gonad,
gonad. A gonad, like balls.
right? Like testicles.
Yes. I don't like the
So,
word testicles. It's dirty. Balls is my preference.
yeah, because
Testicles.
that
That's
is
gross.
so much classier.
Yeah.
Yeah, gonads is really like the classiest.
I know, right?
Okay. So wait a second. So, do they have like their little skeleton bodies still
Yeah.
inside them?
Yeah, they
So
sure do.
so so they're like just fused in there. How come the scientists have never found it
Well,
before?
they have now. That's how I know this story. But for years they didn't even think to look for it. And
They were just
kept,
like, oh, look at this like dangly set of testicles on this female fish.
it looked like a little bump, and the fish are so gross and gooey and bumpy anyway. And it took a long time before they realized, wait a minute, we have males, they're just attached to this big
Wow.
gross female. They just thought it was part of her anatomy initially. And didn't realize it was a separate animal.
There's like a tiny, like you would have thought there would have been like some kind of X-ray thing where they're like, oh look, it's like a regular size skeleton, and oh, there's a tiny little skeleton. Nah, that's just a little wart.
Well, I mean, look, this was in the 1920s they figured it out. So
Oh,
before,
okay.
I mean, it's been known for a long time. It wasn't like it happened
Oh,
this
all right.
year. It was in 1924 they worked it all out. So
Okay, that makes more sense.
I'm not reading the whole story. If you go to fishnerds.com on the show notes this week, we will have the entire story up there. And I posted it with a link back to the original, which was at mentalfloss.com. But I'm not
Okay,
going
that makes a whole lot more sense. The
I was
1920s.
summarizing it, so I would have to read to everybody. So
But that feels like an important piece of information. Like,
well, the year
it was
matters.
just discovered last year
Yeah.
versus way back in the 1920s.
Well, they are still every year they still are figuring this stuff out.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's why I was like shocked that this was something that they just figured out, but it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah. Now, male sharks have 2 sex organs, and they have internal sex like people.
But with themselves.
And no, they have pups. The
Oh,
female
okay.
has pups, like live young.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it reminds me of, do you know why male sharks are so angry?
No.
You'd be angry too if you had 2 penises and no arms.
That's true.
Boom.
Yeah.
They're not really penises. That's funny. All right.
Yeah.
So
The only good I see about having a penis is that I could pee standing up, and I don't know if I could do that with no arms if I'm just learning how to do it. So
no, it's terrible. It's one more thing.
yeah, it's just like yeah, I don't think it would work out for me.
Yeah, I like you the way you are. All right.
Thanks, me too.
Yeah, which brings us to our next segment of the show called Guides Corner with Michael Frank. Michael Frank is a guide in South Carolina. His website is franksflyarts.com.
Okay, so this one is tied with a deer hair head and a splayed hackle tail. The deer hair holds on to air and the brass eyes get it to sink just a little, so it's a neutral buoyancy fly. The old man smirked as I allowed him to admire the lamb's wool patch pinned to my life jacket. It was covered with multicolored furs, feathers, and tinsels lashed to hooks of various sizes and shapes. As I came up for air while explaining how hot glue made the perfect translucent body for a bay anchovy, old Bob spoke up. He took a film canister from his pocket and shook it, opened the lid, and poured out 10 or 15 small hooks dressed with a small tuft of white bucktail hair and a bit of pearl tinsel. He held one up and said, "Son, this is my fly. I call it the snowflake fly. No 2 are alike, and they catch plenty of fish for me." Old Bob was a regular at this boat ramp and the dock under the Kent Narrows Highway Bridge just a few hundred feet away. Striped bass gathered here all summer long in the currents and fed voraciously along the light line just past the shadow of the bridge at night. He'd show up after dark in his old white Ford Windstar minivan, assess the conditions, wind and proximity of the schools of feeding fish, and pull out his fly rod or the spinning rod he called his, quote, long-distance fly rod. Then he'd tie on 2 snowflake flies and start laying into the schoolie stripers, catching and releasing into the wee hours until he was tired of it and ready to go home. This was at least the 3rd time he had told me about his snowflake fly as I proudly shared my latest fish-catching creation. Bob always got a good laugh out of my explanations of my latest well-reasoned fly design and descriptions of new techniques and materials I'd put to use in creating them. And he especially seemed to enjoy his inevitable punchline to my lecture. Son, this is my fly. No two are alike, and... Like old Bob, guides spend a lot of time on the water and tie a lot of flies. They know what works, and since they have to tie so many flies in a fishing season, they often tie patterns that are simple and fast to tie. Just as an example, I found a marabou leech pattern in an Umpqua book of Alaska guide flies that was just a single feather tied and twisted onto a hook. I've tied and fished it, and I can tell you, it works. If you are a fly fisherman who already ties, listening to guys like Bob is a good idea. If you don't have an old Bob of your own, looking for guide-produced fly tying videos online works too. If you fly fish and don't tie your own, in my opinion you should. At $1 a piece, even the cheapest flies start to add up when trees, rocks, or fish start separating them from your line. And some people say that these cheapy flies are poorly tied by sweatshop workers who never saw a trout in their lives, suggesting they are less effective than the ones you tie yourself. The truth is, fish are dumb, and flies are not meant to last forever. This is both good and bad news for the beginning fly tyer. It means that most of your flies will work, even when they are not tied perfectly. It also means that you will have to reconcile with the zen of the fly tyer. As in all things, flies are impermanent. You must learn to release attachment to creations that may have taken you a half an hour to tie, as they may be lost on your first backcast. My advice, maintain inner peace. Oh, there goes my fly. By the way, guys, this is much easier to do when the flies cost a few cents a piece.
All right. Hey, did you know the Fish Nerds are part of the Outdoor Podcast channel? Are you aware? Are you in the mix?
I didn't.
Now you know. The Outdoor Podcast channel is all your outdoor shows on one feed, which means if you subscribe on iTunes to the Outdoor Podcast channel, you get the Fish Nerds and hunting shows and travel shows and camping shows and everything else you ever wanted from the outdoors. A new show every single day at outdoorpodcastchannel.com. And the reason I'm promoting that is I am 1/7 owner of it. So there's that.
I've got a good moose story.
Oh, please keep it short.
I will keep it as short as I can. So, growing up, there was a lot of time when, without hunting, we actually would not have had any food in our freezer.
Yeah, you're from backwoods Maine, right?
I wouldn't say backwoods. Like, I'm seriously.
Like born with no teeth kind of Maine?
Well, everybody's born with no teeth.
Show
off. But honestly, I went school shopping in North Conway. You were the closest city to me. No, I was not backwoods any more than you are. You might be a little backwoods.
I might be. You might be right.
But anyways, you told me to keep this short. Stop interrupting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we would go hunting, and it wasn't necessarily technically the most legal way of hunting because you're not actually supposed to drive deer. I guess it's unfair to the deer and really unsafe because people are pushing deer towards you and they're carrying a gun and you have a gun. So really you're shooting at each other.
Right.
Right. So anyways, my mom, I was probably about 10, and my mom and I were sitting waiting for my dad and my brother. My brother is 3 years younger than me, so he's probably about 7. We might have been a little bit younger than that, actually. I didn't like hunting because I don't like killing Bambi, so I was coloring in the dirt, and we hear these noises coming through the woods. And I'm like, oh, thank goodness we get to go to the truck. I'm so sick of being here. And I look up, and I'm probably about 15 feet away from my mom. And about 15 feet on the other direction was a mama moose. And
Oh.
yeah, but with her, she didn't only have one baby, she had two babies. And they were in this little train, and she spotted us, and she stopped, and the baby moose stopped as well. And so my mom, standing up on a stump, I was sitting down drawing in the dirt. She says to me with her gun lifted up, she's like, Amanda, get over here. And I was so paralyzed and feared because moose are huge.
They're giant. Yeah.
They are so big. All I could do was stand up and hug the tree that was next to me. I couldn't move. I was just like, ah. And so the baby moose in the back must have heard my brother and my father coming, because it ran into its sibling, who ran into the mom, and they took off like a train through the woods. Oops, sorry, I hit my microphone. But they took off like a train through the woods, and they ran away. And I was seriously like 15 feet away from a mama moose and her two babies. And mama moose are crazy.
They are. Mama everythings are crazy.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And so that was like an intense moment in my life. But the hardest part is like, so a lot of the way that people in Maine show love and affection is to tease their relatives ridiculously. And so I was forever called a tree hugger in my family.
Because you're literally hugging a tree.
Correct. And so when I started recycling, because I live in South Portland, where you just recycle because you have single sort, and you just like, oh, look, stuff that's trash and stuff that you put in the blue bucket. It just like drove it home, and everybody's like, yeah, we knew it all along. She's a tree hugger.
Hippie.
Hippie. Yeah. Crunchy granola tree hugger.
Fantastic.
That's me. Yeah, that's my moose story.
Well, that's a good moose story. I don't have any good ones. I do.
Yep.
Wow. Well, I thought it was going to end with you ate the baby moose, and they tasted very tender and delicious. I'm glad it ended positively.
Yes, everybody was fine that time. I have had moose. My dad has tried to ride moose. Yeah, we've got lots of moose stories up here in Maine.
I bet you do. All right, let's do some fish in the news. I happen to love fish in the news. It's my favorite segment on the show. And because we're talking about love and sex, we're going to talk about cod. And this actually ties in good to next week's show, where we're discussing the history of cod. But cod may have local accents, scientists suggest. This is from CNN.com. Did you know this about cod, that they have accents just like people do?
No, my little one, well, not my little one, they're both little to me, but the 5-year-old actually used to say that fish would say balub, balub, and she would try to say it to all of them. So now I'm just picturing like European fish being like with a little British accent. Balub, balub, pass me my tea.
Well, I mean, if you ever meet anybody who like from other countries and you like think, okay, dogs, cows go moo, and you meet someone from Europe, they go, cows go meow, and they have a different sound. Look, I'm not making this up. These people are like this. But cod are the same. So fish romance may be doomed, at least for certain species that migrate away from their traditional spawning grounds, say scientists. Codfish use sounds that are similar to a love song to attract a mate, explained British researcher at a science showcase run by the National Environmental Research Council. But as cod in the UK increasingly move north to find cooler water, scientists are concerned about local accents and noise pollution that may hamper future breeding. Now, unlike people, like I know that American women hear a British accent and they're more likely to spawn. But apparently,
true.
If long hair and a British accent is game over.
No.
But apparently, cod are different. No, not long hair. But
no long hair.
But the accent for sure, right? So, male cod vibrate their swim bladders to produce a pattern of sounds incorporating thumps, growls, and a variety of frequencies that stimulate females to release their eggs. However, researchers suggest cod bred in different parts of the UK may have different vocal repertoires or accents, making it difficult for cod to understand their counterparts from another region. So you might have someone from England, like in London, with that normal kind of straight London accent, and then like a Liverpool accent. And the two,
Not quite as classy.
forget about it. Those two are not doing it, unless they're a Beatle, then it's a different conversation. But not happen. Recordings of American cod are very different to those from European cousins. American cod just cuss more. So there is a precedent. Professor Stephen Simp from the University of Exeter, who is leading the research, told the Press Association. This species is highly vocal, with traditional breeding grounds established over hundreds of thousands of years, so the potential of regionalism is there. So that's the story, really.
That's really interesting. I think that my first thought is that, like, if all of these... So, if you think about, like, the Maine accent, that's horrendous.
Yes. You can't get there from here. Yeah,
exactly.
That person's not going to reproduce with anyone outside of Maine.
Right. Or outside, like, the top half of Maine.
Right,
which is
sorry.
why there's only, like, 7 people that live up there.
By the way, we have a lot of listeners up there. Hi, guys.
I love the top half of Maine.
Yep.
They have some amazing boats that they are making, and there's a lot of really cool stuff going on.
You got Moosehead Lake, right? What else is up there?
There's a whole they're redoing some of their fields and making them into malt fields to help with all of the growth in the beer industry.
Love it.
So
Love it.
yeah, it's fabulous. But if the entire top of Maine came and infiltrated, like, they would all have each other still. So why
But
wouldn't that be the
all
same?
related.
Right. We aren't supposed to. But fish don't care.
Fish don't care. Yeah.
Right?
Right. So what?
Didn't we learn that earlier?
Yeah. Well, so imagine this, right? What's happening is the cod are all trying to find that perfect reproduction temperature of water, which is like, I think it's like 47 degrees. It's like that perfect. It might be 37. It's like that perfect temperature. And so as the ocean temperature is warm, cod are moving more and more north to find that perfect temperature. And so when they're doing that, they're coming
There's already cod living there.
There's already cod there. And those cod there have fabulous accents. And the cod from the south say, like, hey, y'all. And they're like, oh, yeah. Oh, cripes. the yokels have arrived. And those yokels come in.
But can't the yokels be with the yokels? They're just, like, in different waters. So it's like,
Oh, I like the way you're thinking.
Right?
So if enough of them come up, who cares?
Like, why is that happening?
So who cares if the northern stock wants to mate with them or not? The southern ones are there anyway. There's enough of them where they don't care. So that's good. So they just bring all their friends with them. Hey, y'all, let's go up north and mate. Okay.
Yeah.
And the guys up
The only
north are
problem
like,
is
oh,
like,
those guys.
Yeah, they're like, oh, they're just moving in, unfortunately,
Yep.
taking over our stuff. But
There
they're
goes
all there, and they
neighborhood. Yeah.
exactly. It's just they just keep segregation. It's like you can use this water fountain and not this one. Like
Boy.
fish do that, right?
It's interesting that you say that. It makes you feel like less of a terrible human when you hear about humans doing that kind of thing. So you wonder how many other animals.
It make you feel like less of a horrible human if you like that, because it's a horrible human thing to do.
It is.
We have evolved past being fish.
We can choose not to be a fish. So now anytime anyone is racist, homophobic, or whatever, you can say, stop being a fish.
Exactly. You could like. I feel like that should be a new hashtag. Like, we've evolved past fish.
There's a problem because the back of my shirt I'm wearing right now says, I am fish.
Oh no!
Yeah.
That says a lot about you.
I know.
Maybe you should rethink of that after today's lesson.
Oh,
I feel like there are
not
so
fish.
many things that you do not want to be a fish.
I know. Like, I'm like, oh, no, fish, and especially the male fish seem to lose all the time. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's not good. I think the only thing worse than being the male fish that you've talked about is being a male praying mantis, because they get their head bitten off after sex.
I know. It's funny, but it does illustrate what men will do to get laid. And I don't think human males are any different. I think we're all dumb, and we can't help it. It's just nature does that to us. So the advantage of being a woman is you're not inherently stupid. And
I actually have a beer theory about that.
oh, let's hear it. Gosh.
Okay. So, you know how so many women say that they don't like beer?
Yes.
Like, it's not actually true. There's actually a lot of women out there that really do like beer, but it seems like that is a thing that people think.
Right, I've heard that.
Right. It's not necessarily true. There's a lot of women in the beer world. But let's go with the assumption that what everybody says is correct.
Okay.
And that there are a lot less women that like beer.
Right.
Well, I think the reason for that is that women will do something and be like, well, that was the stupidest thing I've ever done, and not do it again.
Right. Oh.
Right?
And
so if
men
you
will
have...
say, hey, hold my beer, and do it again.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think you're
so
right.
like if a woman tries a really crappy beer, she's going to be like, been there, done that, no thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And so unfortunately, we also sometimes can be like a little bit, judgy. So if a beer comes at us with the label of beer on it, we're like, no. But, there's so many other...
No.
Exactly. No, thank you. But there's so many other kinds of beers out there that we have to like try some more. But I feel like women are like, no, I've tried that once. I'm not going to do it. So probably at one point, the female anglerfish was like, hey, why don't we try letting you take the lead? And the little tiny male fish was like, yeah, let's do that. And then she was like, that was the stupidest thing ever.
Yeah, now bite me and fuse to me, be my gonad.
Exactly. She's like, listen, I'm just going to take care of you, wee little one, because obviously you can't run the boat.
Yep, and you get laid at my will.
Exactly.
As
I want
it should
to.
be. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so that's a good theory. I like it. So that's really great. I'm glad you're on this show. We have one more story to do.
Okay.
And we have to do this story because I've been all over Facebook this week. I've been getting this story, and I have to talk about this because it's been really making me insane. So I'm tired of people sharing it on my Facebook wall. But the story is from Nat Geo. It's one fish frozen while eating another, a rare discovery. Two brothers set out to videotape their rare find from an ice fishing trip, which has gone viral. And I'm not even going to read you the whole story, but these two guys found a pike eating a bass frozen halfway through the ice with the tail of the fish coming through the top of the ice hole. And I just, the whole thing makes me insane because it didn't happen.
Photoshop?
No. I mean, they really did find have a fish inside the mouth of another fish. Like pike often will die eating fish bigger than they are. That's normal. Mm-hmm. That's common.
Okay.
The way it froze with this. So the theory is someone caught a bass, dumped it down an ice fishing hole, and a pike shot up through the hole and bit the bass, choked, and everything froze solid into the hole with the bass sticking out of the water. And they cut it out with a chainsaw and took pictures and went viral. I'm saying it never happened. I'm saying that someone took a bass and a pike and stuffed it in a fish hole, let it freeze solid, and then made a viral video about it. It didn't happen. A pike is not coming up through an ice fishing hole to eat a bass. It's just not happening. It didn't happen. It's not a thing. And I call bullshit on the whole thing. So that's it. Just wanted to say that out loud, that it's a cool picture and it's total garbage and didn't happen. So how do you like that?
I don't know. The skeptical me is like, maybe it didn't, but maybe it did. Maybe this pike was like deranged and like somebody like had caught it at one point and like accidentally squished his little pike brain and it didn't really know what it was doing, and maybe it was jumping up there. Yeah, and I really think that the word ice hole is a great swear.
It's the greatest. Well, that swear goes back to the movie Johnny Dangerously. Have you seen that movie?
No.
Oh, it's old from the 80s, one of my favorite movies. But one of the bad guys in there can't figure out how to cuss. So he goes like, he says things like, "Fargan ice hole." That's his big cuss word in the movie. Fargan ice hole.
There's a show on one of the channels right now called like The Good Place, and they can't swear there. Uh-huh. So she says shirt and fork a lot.
Oh, I love it.
She's like, "What the fork? Why can't I forking swear?"
I love it. Oh.
And I feel like ice hole is like next season's swear word. I gotta tweet those guys. Listen, guys, I got you a new one. Ice hole.
I love it. They probably already know it, and the writers are old like me, and so they've seen the movie Johnny Dangerously. They don't want to steal from it.
Perhaps.
But it's been long enough.
Or maybe it's like a thing where you know it and not everybody does.
So you have to Google. I'll share a link on your wall. but Google it.
Perfect. Thank
Yeah.
you.
So actually, we're out of time. I'm going to wrap this whole show up.
Can
And
I ask you
yeah,
one question
sure,
first?
please.
So we started out with you asking me my origin story, but
Yeah,
every time that I'm not going to ask you your origin story because
good.
origin stories are long.
Well, because
But
my
my
mom and
first,
dad loved each other very much.
and there was a money shot.
Yeah,
Um,
a big pile of eggs, whole bunch of sperm. It was horrible and gross. And then I
Secretly,
was
I
born.
am a fish. I just really evolved quickly.
That's right.
No. My question, the one that I always wrap the show up with, is, of course, what is your first beer memory?
Oh, when I was like 7 or 8 years old, my dad was a
These are
big.
the best ones.
My dad was an alcoholic. I don't know if he was alcoholic. My
I
dad.
take that back.
Yeah, yeah. So we had a tool shed in our backyard. No, I'm just kidding. So when I when I was a kid,
And there was a fish in it.
there was
That
always there's always fish. My dad drank beer a lot. And I remember on my back porch once in a while, my dad would go, "Hey Clay, you want a beer?" And I'd be like, "Yeah." And he'd pour beer into a mug, and I would take a sip, and I'd pretend to be drunk for hours. But but my real beer, the reason when I first started liking good beer was when I was 18. I was in New Jersey, and you couldn't, obviously you can't drink at 18. And I learned that if you tried to pretend to be 21 and bought crappy beer, you would be more likely to get carded than when you bought good beer. So I was
Nice.
able to go to the store, and if I was buying like a really good microbrew, which was in the 90s, we called craft beers, microbrews, back when you were a baby. Um, if if you ordered a good beer, nobody would hassle you because dumb 18-year-olds didn't order a good microbrew; they ordered Bud Light. So I was able to get good beer because people would sell it to me. But when I was ordering crappy beers, no one would. So that's kind of so I've had a lot of good beer experience, and we used to try to taste every kind of beer we could. And so I had pure beers with like hot peppers in them and all kinds of weird stuff, and I just really like it. I really like really hoppy IPAs now as my favorite, but yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely some really cool Maine beers that are pretty hoppy.
Yeah. By the way, I keep trying to find somebody else who's done this tour. Have you gone on the Allagash tour?
I've been to Allagash many times. I actually
Ah,
worked for a company for a while that did tours throughout all like 3 or 4 different breweries. I was a beer tour guide on a
no
bus.
way.
Yes, sir.
Oh, that's a dream. So the
It was pretty fabulous.
the Allagash Brew is my favorite brewery tour I've ever gone on. It ended with these beers that were brewed in Jack Daniels or Jim Beam barrels.
Uh-huh.
And they're like 13% alcohol. And they're like,
Yeah.
you don't mean to get drunk on this tour. But at
But
the
you do.
end, you do. And you got to walk down the street to like the cheap Mexican restaurant and sit there for an hour before you can go home.
Well, now there are 4 breweries in that same spot.
There
There's
are.
Allagash, and there's like this little
Wanderlust or something. What's the beer they have there? Yeah, Wanderlust is the beer I bought from this
Epiphany.
other. Yeah, yeah.
Yep, Epiphany. I mean, not Epiphany. They have Epiphany as well. It's called Foundation.
That's the one. Yeah, right down
Yep.
there. Yep.
Yep, Foundation, Austin Street, and a new one that's just opening up, Steel Battery. But yeah, so industrial. We're pretty punny here up in Portland. We have Industry Ale Way, and we
Oh,
have
God.
Yeast Bayside. Those are 2 big beer places.
The yeast one sounds just terrible. That's just a bad
Well,
choice.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a really good place to be. There's like distilled things, distilled liquids. There are meads, kombucha, and beer,
Yeah.
all in like a
now-
walking distance.
Now, a lot of people who aren't from New England don't understand that Portland, Maine is like the hipster of the Northeast town. Like, it's a great place to be.
First,
Good-
I'm gonna say.
Yeah.
First, I'm gonna say. Actually, I would prefer saying that we are the East Coast capital
Uh-huh.
of beer.
Yes. Great
now-
breweries there. Yes.
Yes. And I would like to say that I'm not specifically a hipster. My husband would
No.
disagree because I like to wear skinny jeans, but I'm a girl.
Yeah.
But he's like, no, you're definitely a hipster. But you were mentioning that if you buy crappy beer, you would get carded. Here it's different because as much as I want to protest the fact that there are hipsters around and we're like, no, we're just people.
Oh, they're
No,
drinking.
there's
No, they're
definitely.
PBR drinkers now. Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you well, no, like here in Portland, you're more likely to get carded if you're ordering a craft beer than a cheap beer because
That's what they
you know,
have.
right.
Yeah.
If you're like, I'll have a Bud Light, you're like, oh, you must be stuck in your ways and have been that way for a long time.
Does it make you crazy when you see like quality people drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon?
Well,
Like,
I think
get
there's a time and a
insane.
place.
No, there's not. It's wrong,
Yeah,
and it
no,
shouldn't
there
happen. It
is.
should be.
Like
It's
a
terrible.
really hot, like a really, really hot summer's day when you're playing wiffle ball on a tar field, like tar area. That's a great time for PBRs. You're
No,
just gonna sweat that stuff out anyways.
no, I still won't do it. But I'll drink the champagne of beers on a hot day. But
Well, see,
not.
that's not any better.
It is. You put a lime in, it tastes like Corona. So that's it. You've listened to a couple of fish nerds and a beer nerd when you should have been fishing.
We'd like to thank our families for supporting us while we podcast, go on fishing quests, and do all sorts of silly things that nerds do. If you would like to support Fish Nerds, you can go to patreon.com and search for Fish Nerds and help us crowdfund this podcast.
Special thanks to Amanda from GreatBeerAdventure.com. Amanda, thank you so much for being part of this special Valentines episode. I'm feeling a little bit of love.
Well, it's easy to do. Thank you so much for having me on, and until next time, follow the code of the Fish Nerd. Spawn early and often.
And avoid free blushes with strings attached.
Swim against the current every chance you get.
We made a podcast.